the ability to look out for learning opportunities that aligns with your career prospect, that aligns with even what you're doing currently, like striving to improve yourself every time. I know, like most times when we're setting our goals, or sometimes we don't really prioritize our personal development or career development or whatever. Being conscious about that, looking out for training opportunities, looking out for mentoring opportunities, being part of global forums, coordination forums, be it at the state level, be it at the national level, be it at the global level, looking at, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be paid training. I think at some point in my career, there was a point I even got frustrated with everything, and I started questioning myself, is this something I really want to do? Should I go back to the business I mismanaged? Should I pick up my football boots and go back to the football pitch, or should I go back to the studio?
Hi there. Welcome to the Development Conversations podcast. I am your host, Tobi Ransomed, and it is so good to have you here. On the last episode, we talked about the place of purpose and value in our careers as development practitioners. And today we have a very important topic, which is navigating career growth in the development sector. Whether you're just starting out in your career, or you're looking to transition, or you even want to learn more tips or get valuable insights on how you can remain relevant and continue growing in your career, this episode is going to be so valuable for you. And guess what? I have a guest today. He's no other than Ransomed Chibueze. You're welcome, Ransomed, to today's podcast.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a privilege to be here.
It's really good to have you. And I need to say something, that I met Ransomed in 2016. Yes, I met in 2016 when I was deployed to the northeast Nigeria. We were responding to the humanitarian needs there. I was in the education sector and he in child protection. And something that I've known about him since then is his commitment, his devotion, to the work that he does, and then just the desire to see that he continues to make impact. And another fun fact is, Ransomed is also my husband. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to what do you feel about joining me today?
Like I said, it's an honor and privilege to be here, especially being the first guest on the Development Conversation podcast, and I look forward to an enriching conversation with you and everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's going to be enriching, and yes, he's the first guest, so maybe there's a bit of family arrangements going on, but believe you me, this is beyond family, and I'm sure by the end of this podcast you're going to know why we decided to have him as our very first guest. So I'll just say a bit about Ransomed. He's a seasoned humanitarian and development professional with over 12 years experience. He has successfully designed, managed, and implemented about a number of multi-million projects funded by institutional donors, USAID, right? Global Affairs, Global Affairs Canada,
ECHO, EU, name it.
Exactly. And I think your portfolio is getting to about $24 million.
We're talking 40. Don't diminish my portfolio.
I am sorry. And he has also supported, like I mentioned earlier, the humanitarian response in northeast Nigeria and other countries.
Yeah, Iraq, Sudan, the MENA region, and also Eastern Southern African region.
Yeah, so he has like a very long, would I say, CV or resume, and wide range of experience. So Ransomed, we're just going to go straight into some questions. But before I ask some questions, let's have a bit of a warm-up. So if you weren't a development work, what would you be doing?
Absolutely, I would have been a DJ.
That is interesting. Do you want to tell them why?
Prior to me joining the development sector, I've always had passion for music. I used to write very early in the days. I remembered my first use of Fruit Loops. So I was a bit of a DJ, and that passion ended with my transitioning into the development sector. So I've always wanted to be around the entertainment industry. So
well, that's interesting. I'm not going to tell them your DJ name, so let's just skip that.
I can as well say it's.
Let's hold it as a surprise. So my next question is, if you had to describe your career in the development sector as a movie, what movie will that be?
I'm caught between Designated Survivor and Prison Break. I just feel like we work in a sector that's overwhelming, and we're always chasing one thing or the other, or trying to break out from one thing or the other. Today it's climate change, tomorrow it's COVID-19. So it's you just have to be adaptable to be able to like survive in this sector. So haven't been able to survive for the past 12 to 15 years, more than a decade now. Designated Survival. You can check out that movie on Netflix.
That's okay. We're not doing an advert, but yeah, that is interesting. So let's dive right into the questions or the meat of this session. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you to the development sector?
Like you said earlier on, I have more than a decade experience working in both the development and humanitarian sector. You've obviously mentioned my name, and I've had the opportunity to work with lots of institutional donors and across several organizations, both at national level and also at the international level. However, my passion is drawn to like protection. If you look at the rate of abuses, not just in Nigeria but globally, it's something that is really, really worrisome. And I've always wanted to be able to do something that impacts life, something that is able to improve the situation of not just children but the most vulnerable. And that led me to my passion. In the development sector, I started out as an with OVC programming. For those of you that are familiar with development, like orphans and vulnerable children programming, where we're doing lots of in-school youth programming, HIV counseling and testing, lots of programs around TB. Then we used to call it 6+1 services, had health, protection, play, Rank Kids Club, and all of that. And I volunteered for a couple of years, about 2-3 years. Then that was the pathway to getting into the development sector. And after that, I got a role as a program officer, where I was doing something more higher than what I was then doing. And since then, it's been an upward trajectory.
That is very interesting, and I think one of the things that stood out to me in your response is your desire to want to make an impact in the lives of people, right? And then you also mentioned issue of abuses and the rest. So can you say that your role in the development sector has afforded you the opportunity to actually make this impact? So yeah,
I would say yes. I feel like at an even wider scale, the conflicts, the Boko Haram conflicts that started in the Northeast made me pivot in a way to the humanitarian sector. I had to travel down to Maiduguri. Then people were scared on going to Maiduguri, but I was very, very happy to go to Maiduguri. I didn't even tell my parents or people close to me that I was in Maiduguri until after 2-3 years. So that was how scary it was around that 2015, 2016. You couldn't just get in. It was a very, very difficult context. And we're dealing with a protracted conflict that had affected not just children but also like mostly women. I'm not sure of the numbers now, but I think it was about 4 million then. So I started as the same line of work, like a protection officer, and from there I grew within the ranks. And we work in a very complex context, and every experience, I would say, is very, very important. What I'm doing currently now, you can link it back to like where I started. it doesn't really matter where you find yourself. Your ability to be dedicated, your ability to adapt, your ability to evolve, your ability to ensure that you are giving it your best would determine the next step you take in your career. If you want to be like a manager, I tell people it starts from the day you enroll as an intern. It starts from the day you get into the sector as, let's say, maybe an education volunteer or maybe a caseworker or maybe a field assistant. You start grooming yourself to become a manager. What are those qualities you think a manager should have? You start imbibing them within that small space, and also ensuring that you take on additional like responsibilities, looking out for things outside what you are currently doing, outside your current role. It might be even asking your line manager, what else can you do? How else can you support? If there is a report, can I support in like writing this report? Can anything that you can really support with, because the higher you go, the higher the responsibilities. And I would say my first role, even as a volunteer, has prepared me. When I engage with caseworkers, when I engage with volunteers, when I engage with assistants, when I engage with officers, I engage with them with that lens that I was once in their position, and I'm able to actually do things in an empathetic way. I'm able to like see what their needs are, how best I could support them to be better, and all of that. So I would say yes, my first role has been really important and has also played a very strong role in where I am currently.
Wow, that is really amazing. And I really liked how you mentioned, I think from what you said, what I can pick up is actually starting with the end in mind, and then also like being very intentional about working towards it. And then there's something also that you said about your first role as a volunteer has helped you to be empathetic in your work and also to support people that are coming after you. So thank you so much for that response. Okay, Ransomed, you have been sharing wonderful insights. So I would like to ask you now, what strategies or decisions helped you advance in your career, especially with the constant adaptation, and also learning and growth? Like, can you share some of these that you have had to put yourself through to get to this point in your career?
I would say continuous learning, the ability to look out for learning opportunities that aligns with your career prospect, that aligns with even what you're doing currently, like striving to improve yourself every time. I know, like most times when we're setting our goals, or sometimes we don't really prioritize our personal development or career development or whatever. Being conscious about that, looking out for training opportunities, looking out for mentoring opportunities, being part of the global forums, coordination forums, be it at the state level, be it at the national level, be it at the global level, looking out, like it doesn't necessarily need to be paid training. It could be even a free training that your organization is providing that you feel like it's aligned to your career trajectory. You feel like it's going to help you improve. You feel like it's going to help you develop. For instance, you are an officer and you're looking forward to becoming a manager one day. Nothing stops you from doing a project management training. Nothing stops you from doing a report writing training. Nothing stops you from doing a training that's going to improve your ability to write reports, your ability to write proposals, your ability to manage projects. Another thing is also networking and mentorship. It's been also very, very key in my career, being able to network and being able to map out or look out for mentors within the space, not even necessarily in your location. It could be at the global level, people that could really help you improve, people that could hold you accountable, people that you can always fall back to whenever you within crossroads or whenever you face challenges. Then something else is also being able to diversify your experience. Nothing stops you, let's say you're working in the supply chain sector, nothing stops you from knowing what people in the programs are doing, nothing stops you from knowing what people in finance are doing, nothing stops you from improving your skill sets and diversifying your skill set so that you are able to adapt and you can also be able to fit into several roles that are not necessarily what you are doing primarily. Another that thing, it's adapting to change. We work in a sector that it's, I don't know how I would put it now, that I would say it's, we work in a sector,
Constantly evolving?
yes, that is constantly evolving. So your ability to adapt. I know at one point, we were having serious issues with COVID-19. When COVID-19 came, everybody was thinking, how are we able to continue programs? Now we are talking climate change. Now we are talking even donor funding. There is a big drastic reduction in donor funding. How are you able to adapt? How are you able to adapt your skills to make sure that you're able to fit into this context at any given time? That is also something that is very, very important. And also, how are you able to ensure that your skills are relevant not just for where you're working currently, be it Sokoto, be it Borno, be it Nigeria? How are your skills also relevant for the global context? Your ability to adapt whatever you're doing here and be able to also implement it across different contexts and be able to ensure that whatever impact you're making, you're not making it at just maybe the community or state level, but it's something that can also be skilled at a wider or higher scale.
Wow, thank you very much for those very helpful strategies. I'm sure our listeners are actually also taking note. I remember our career mentor back then when we were working together. I'm sure you remember her, our technical advisor. One of the things she told me after I had been in the organization for a while and I grew some steps along the career ladder, she said, Tobi, I want you to look or pick the job description of your next role or the next two roles you want to get to. Look at the job description, identify areas that you will want to grow in. So, for example, if that next role was probably a project manager or business development person in education where I had to do a lot of interfacing or communication with donors, I should pick that and then develop a plan to grow through it. So, I really like and impressed by your intentionality in handling your career growth. So, before we move to talking about challenges, did you ever know when it was time for you to transit to the next role, or did you just leave it to job adverts?
I would say I always knew, but that didn't really mean that happened at the point that I discovered that I needed to move.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes you get to a point where you feel like what you're doing now is routine, like you have outgrown whatever level you are in currently. At that point, what really helps is also, like you said, talking to your supervisors, be it the management, and saying you would want to take on higher responsibilities. So you can be seconded into higher roles. You can also be able to maybe shadow someone who is in a higher position and be more like an assistant to the person, supporting them with their specific responsibilities. I feel like if you're conscious about your journey, you would always know, you would always have a plan. Currently, my current role, I have already mapped out a 2-year plan that in 2 years, this is where I want to be in. And every year, I ensure that that's part of my development objectives. Everything I'm doing every day is contributing to where I want to be in the next 2 years. So sometimes it's not even about the position. You can be, let's say, an officer or a coordinator, but you're taking on a higher responsibility. You're doing something that maybe a deputy team lead will do, or even an operations director will do, or something. It means that you are improving, and whenever those opportunities come, you are already prepared and positioned to actually take on them.
Wow. Thank you so much for just sharing and that. What you said about including your career goals in your personal development or professional development plan is very important. As development practitioners, a lot of us actually have opportunities to set our yearly goals or annual goals. And part of the annual goals is to also map out your professional or career development plan. And I've noticed that a lot of people I have managed or even colleagues take that for granted. So they just feel like it is routine and, just move with the flow. But then if you are a very smart and intentional professional, you're going to be very intentional with that, right? And then just map out your journey. And talking to people helps, talking to supervisors or a mentor, these all help. So you mentioned something when you were talking about when you knew the time to move. You said that it didn't always happen immediately, even though you knew.
Yeah.
How did you manage that waiting period? Because a lot of times we know that we're supposed to move out of a place, and sometimes the opportunities would come. So they could be in form of either job adverts or something like that, and you're still stuck in that position. How do you manage that waiting period or that transition period without losing your cool or being one of those colleagues that's just either just phased out of the organization?
I wouldn't lie and say I've not been in a position where I didn't lose my cool. I think at some point in my career, there was a point I even got frustrated with everything, and I started questioning myself: is this something I really want to do? Should I go back to the business I mismanaged? Should I pick up my football boots and go back to the football pitch, or should I go back to the studio? And those moments would come, but what would keep you grounded? It's the vision you have for yourself, where you and the amount of work you've also, the investment you've made in yourself. That you have a plan that in the next 2 years, let's say you want to become a country director, doesn't mean that you'll be a country director in the next 2 years. But what gives you that fulfillment? It's if you're able to track your progress. Are you improving every day? Are you better than the Tobi that you were yesterday, or the Richard that you were yesterday, or the Ubangari that you were yesterday? Are you better than the Lydia that you were yesterday, or Shahad, or whoever you were yesterday?
Yeah.
You being able to track your growth, being able to, and also, like I said, most times our supervisors don't know that we want to do more. So you can't just sit in your corner and assume that it's your personal professional development. It's not your supervisor's professional development.
Yeah.
Like like most organizations, we say, some would even tell you that it's 95% your responsibility and 5% the responsibility of the organization. So you preparing, you improving, and sometimes I would say this: whatever you believe in, if you're a traditionalist, if you're a faith-based person, you can always, that can also be like some sort of like a sukkah for you. And the primary objective why you started this, which is helping people, going out every day and seeing children in maybe the IDP camp, or seeing children in school smile because of the work that you're doing, can also like be a motivating factor. But I wouldn't say there is a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to career development. Like what has worked for you might not necessarily be a template for someone else, but just ensuring that you're improving, ensuring that you're developing, ensuring that you're better, and you are also able to track this, and being ready and prepared for the next step. The fact that you have done 7 interviews and none was successful doesn't mean that you are bad, or doesn't mean that you should stop. It's possible that there is something the hiring managers saw in others that they didn't, that made them not to pick. It doesn't mean that you are not like the best fit for that particular role. So just keep trying and being resilient, and be also conscious of what you want to do, and where you see yourself in the next couple of years would keep you grounded until that big breakthrough comes. And I used to tell people, when it comes, you would also have that sense of fulfillment, that you really put in the work and you really invested, and you didn't allow the failures get to you. I used to tell people, fail forward. That you fail today doesn't mean that you wouldn't succeed tomorrow. Take the lessons from those interviews, take the lessons from those failures. Always do like an after action review. What did you do well? You can even get feedback from the panelists sometimes. What are the areas you need to improve on them, and you go for it the next time, and hopefully you'll secure your next big thing.
That's really amazing. Like, I shall have to say that just, going through the process of interviews and applications and feeling is the ghetto.
It's traumatizing, to be honest. Very traumatizing.
I remember the interview I went through in, was it 2022? Where I thought I'll be moving from where we were to the capital city. And they had done the, my reference check. I had called my family, told everybody that I was moving, and then unfortunately, I fell sick for 2 nights. for 2 days that weekend that I mean, but yeah, we keep moving. I really like that you talked about keeping your vision, your why in front of you, like why you started this journey. For you, of course, you had mentioned that it was making an impact in the lives of the children, and just knowing that what you're doing is making an impact is important. And also, and even letting your supervisors know, because a lot of times you don't even know that we want to be, right? And I also like the fact that you were very honest with your situation. You were frustrated, and it wasn't an easy period for you, but just realigning and just bringing yourself back to the point of, okay, what can I do more, or how can I be better? And even getting feedback from panels, the interview panels and the rest is really important. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for talking about feeling forward. So in just a few words or more, can you share one or two challenges that you have faced in your career? Like, so when you look back, what are those challenges that really shook you to your core, but it made you better?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I have faced at an organizational level, I would say there was a period, not me necessarily, but our sector overspent, I think, about 400,000 years.
I think I remember that period, but you guys are the black sheep.
I'm with the talk of the organization. Everybody was saying, these guys, they don't know what they are doing. Every meeting, we actually the talk of the town. Then came an opportunity in the midst of that challenge where the management were like, okay, we're here now. What can we do? I remember my then boss would always drive back home and he'll be like, how do we get out of this mess? Would meet. But after lots of strategizing and everything, we're able to come out of that mess. I got, I think, a managerial role too within that period.
Yes.
And I grew the sector from a sector that had about 7 staff to a sector that had about 40 staff. I grew our portfolio from about, I think then we were struggling with about 600,000, and I grew the portfolio to about 5.9 million, which is, for me, quite impressive.
Yes, it is.
And what it simply means is sometimes challenges are actually what shapes you. Within every challenge there is an opportunity. So looking at not just the challenge, but looking at the opportunity within that challenge as an individual to even position yourself, to avail yourself the opportunity to show what you can really do in the midst of the challenge. It's something that I found really, really helpful.
Honestly, that's very impressive. And I remember that period because I think we usually have what we call BVA, budget variance analysis, meetings where we review the spend and the rest. And his department was basically the talk of the organization, and it felt good to just have the attention on you guys. But I'm really glad that that was the wind or the storms that actually pushed you, coupled with the fact that you had already put in the work and grown over the years. So would you say that is one of your milestones, like your key milestones, or do you have any other milestone when you look at your career that you're very proud of?
That could be one. Lots of milestones. I think something I'm also very proud of, it's leading or steering the domestication of the Child Rights Act, which is now called the Child Protection Policy in the Northeast, Borno State, Adamawa, and Yobe State. It's something that took lots of investments in terms of stakeholder engagement, in terms of even it wasn't an easy task. It's something that took more than 5-7 years from when it started before we could get the then current governor to pass that bill into law, and other states around him also adopted it and passed into law immediately after he did so. So that's something that I'm very, very proud of. And also, when I was working in the Northeast, there was no alternative care policy that could guide the placement of children into foster care placements. So I and my team then, Richard, Wangari, all of them, bless them wherever they are, worked together with the then different state governments and also the cluster to develop one. So I would say these are some of my key milestones. And also I've been able to support the development of proposals that have ensured that conflict affected children and their families are able to get the needed support. whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's in Sudan, whether it's in the MENA region. And like I said, when this podcast started, we're talking about 40-something million USD in funding. So I would say these are some of my proud moments, and also being able to manage and close out projects well. But these are at an organizational level. Personally, what I derive pride from, it's investing in people. I have been able to mentor, build lots of people, and invest in a lot of people for me, which I feel it's also contributing back to the sector, who has scattered all over the world, so in Afghan, and for me that gives me immense pride whenever I see them doing amazing things.
That's really interesting, and that's so amazing. Just hearing you talk about what you have done, I've also personally have seen the investment, like the personal investment that you have made into your work, into the people, and it's really, really inspiring. I remember one of the things, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but one of the things that stood out to me when I first met Ransomed, it was in 2016. I just moved to...
Is this a love podcast?
It is not a love podcast, but allow. One of the things that stood out to me when I first met him, I resumed as an education officer on the project that he was working on. I noticed that he was a very hardworking and dedicated staff. And I remember one of his colleagues said, "Oh, don't worry, if you need anything on this job, like you just go to Ransomed. He's going to put you through." Well, going to Ransomed, this is very but well done, and congratulations. So we're rounding up our session now. It has been such a wonderful time talking with you. But what will you tell someone that is trying to build a career in this space? Maybe like in 1 or 2 or 3 points, what would you tell someone here?
I would say continuous learning. If you're somebody who is trying to join this sector, you would need to be able to also communicate effectively. You would need to be able to, I would advise, like you said earlier on, pick a particular sector you would want to work in. Look at the job description. What does it entail? Does it entail report writing? Then ensure that you improve yourself in that area. I think one thing that is missing in this sector, and anybody who has worked with me also knows this about me, which is one of my core values, is accountability. You can't work with me and not be accountable. Being accountable means doing what you're paid to do.
Yeah.
Like ensuring we work in a sector where people thrive on, sorry to use, maybe I shouldn't even be saying this.
Don't say that.
Yes,
Don't say
this is a podcast. But I feel like the best gift you can give to your supervisor is doing your job and doing it well. The best gift you can give to the organization is being accountable for what they have entrusted into your hands. They have entrusted children into your hands. They have entrusted a particular job for you to do. So being accountable is something that would take you really far. I know that this is something that is very, very rare with the current generation. So accountability, continuous improvement, also networking. Attend any forum that you can attend that contributes to your sector. If it's education, they have their coordination platform. If it's whatever sector that you're working in, ensuring that you're able to network with people and ensuring that you're also adaptable. Look out for current trends within the sector. How best can you improve yourself? How best can you be better than who you were? And volunteering, it's something that is missing lately in this sector. Look for an organization, whether it's a civil society organization in your locality, whether it's a community-based organization. It could even be within your church. Look for a community that you can also contribute to, and something that you're very passionate about without necessarily looking at the ends or making money out of it and the rest. And that would be a good platform for you to develop yourself and to also contribute to the sector. And from there, hopefully, it's going to be an upward trajectory.
Wow. Well, you have heard it all. I mean, this has been a power-packed session. Personally, just listening to you, I'm just thinking about my own journey, and I'm like, oh yes, this is it. I'm talking about resilience, talking about going back to your faith in times of frustrations or troubles or worries, talking about just putting your core values and your purpose, your why before you, networking, adaptability, being willing to learn and keep learning, and even receiving feedback. And of course, the big one is accountability. Thank you so much, Ransomed. Before we go, Do you have any closing word for our listeners all over the world?
I would say we work in a sector where sometimes we expect so much from the sector, but the why of this sector, it's giving.
Yeah.
So let's not forget the why. Let's keep giving. Let's keep giving our best. And again, something we didn't talk about is well-being. Whilst you give, also make sure that you're giving to yourself. Take leaves, take breaks, take care of yourself. And if you're a manager, if you're a leader, look out for your staff. Know when to tell them to take a break, know when to tell them to rest. And also, if you are also in that position of leadership where a lot of people dump on you, but you don't have who to dump on, just look out for a well-being system that works for you and look after yourselves while you look after others.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being with us, for listening and engaging. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, if you are just starting your career, or you want to grow, or you've been stuck in a while and you feel you are in a rut, please listen. Also share this with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues. Also, do not forget to follow us. We are on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, and you can also engage and follow us on Instagram, right, and LinkedIn, and also on X, which was formerly known as Twitter. We want to hear from you, our listeners. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to hear your concerns. Are there topics that you want us to talk about? Are there issues you want us to also engage with and find solutions? Please, our comment sections are open, right? Our inboxes are also open. Also, share your feedback about this session. For now, this is bye from me. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. Bye.